This is Single Status. Welcome, everyone, back to the Single Status Podcast. I am so pumped that you are here today. This is your host, Samantha Vigneault. And before we get started, I just want to remind you to make sure to subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to the podcast platform you listen on, like, follow, share with a friend, comment. I want to hear your feedback. I want this to be interactive, so I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you're thinking, if you have ideas for the future. And really, this is how we grow. When you rate us, when you subscribe, this is how we grow, and this is how we reach more people. So please, I would really appreciate if you did that. And also make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where you can get all the updates on everything that we are doing at the Single Status Podcast. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest today, Alyssa Oyen. Did I say that properly?
Yes, you
Oyen?
did. Not many people do.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy I got that right. But I'm so happy to have you here today. And we actually didn't know each other. We met through a mutual friend. And we talked a little bit before, and you're just so sweet, and you are, killing it right now with your career, and you're so active in ministry, and she really has a heart for helping women in their single season, pursue God, grow in their relationship with God. And so I just want to say thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you. And why don't you just share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of jump into what we want to talk about today.
Sure. Well, I will just get my age out there. I'm 32, and I grew up in Florida my whole life and went to school at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then ended up staying there for grad school. And then when I moved back to Florida, I was able to start working for a ministry called Christ for All Nations. And so I've been there about 7 years now. I've had a few different roles, and most recently, I'm the communications and marketing project manager. And then when I moved to Florida, I found a church as well where I live. So I'm very active there and work as the discipleship women's coordinator for women's groups. And it's a volunteer role, but it's very fun and very life-giving as well. It's an honor to be a part of the church and be in full-time ministry.
That's awesome. How cool. And so when you moved back to Florida, you kind of found your own community and cultivated your own community, right? And
yes, where I grew up was about an hour away where I live and work now. So
okay.
it was same state, but different area for sure. And Orlando's massive. So yeah, but it's been so fun to build a community of people and friends and be active in church and just have connections and things and ways to meet people and go out. So
awesome. Very cool. And we talked before a little bit, and you shared with me that you were a late bloomer when it came to dating and relationships and stuff like that. So can you give us some background on that? And
sure.
And yeah, just share your story.
Yeah. So growing up, even going into college, like none of the cool guys liked me. It was always my friends or whatever. At least they never told me, or they wouldn't flirt with me. So I never had a boyfriend in high school. I was never asked out on a date. And when I went into college, I was surrounded by all these awesome guys. And I was like, oh, maybe he's the one. Maybe he's the one. I drove myself crazy. And so about a week that I just was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm just going to enjoy college and it'll happen. So, and then in college, I wasn't asked out on a date either. I would hang out with guys and friends, but it was, I don't know why. And I was thinking like, what's wrong with me? I don't know. People told me I was fun or pretty, but I was like, I don't get it. So yeah, I didn't have much dating experience at all. I wasn't even asked out on my first date till I was in grad school, and that was just to a banquet that was for one night. But that was a huge victory for me.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And then you shared a little bit about, or I guess what that journey was like going from it sounds like you were looking for your husband or the one or whatever. And yeah, tell us how that went and how your relationship with the Lord kind of led you to where you're at now with your faith and everything.
Definitely. So I think in life, like each person has their own set of struggles, be it family, finances, different things. For me, it always seemed like the one thing that was like super difficult in my life was relationships. Like, why isn't this area of my life thriving or flourishing? So when I was in college, it was actually 10 years ago. I was a junior heading into my senior year in college. And the Lord gave me a vision that really helped speak to me and release some pressure that I put on myself or questions that I had. So I was just one night looking out my window, at the bedroom window, looking at the moon, and I was praying and I'm asking God, like, why is this taking so long? And, I'm 21, about to be 22, and, why hasn't anything happened for me? And struggling with patience, the whole thing, because I'm very old school. Like, my plan was to get married by 22, and at that rate, it was not looking good. So,
wow, and it's so young. It's crazy the pressure we
I
put on
know.
ourselves as young women, and wow. So go ahead.
Yes. And so I was praying, and the Lord gave me this picture of a guy on a chariot with two horses, and like the old school, like Roman kind of look, and with feather in the cap and the whole thing. And it was like a Roman like chariot with two horses. And I felt like the Lord say, it's my protection over you that is keeping the guys back. And in that, I saw like the chariot, and the guy driving it was holding the reins of two horses. And those two horses like represented, the Lord was showing me guys that were trying to come after me, but he was holding them back. And it brought such relief and peace to me. Like, wow, it's not that no guys are interested, but God is actually watching over me. And whether it was to protect my heart or my relationship with God so that I could grow closer to him with it not being the right time, I don't know, but it just brought a huge relief to me, and all the pressure went off. And then I was like, oh my gosh, all this time I've been complaining about why are there no guys. I'm actually complaining about God's protection. Wow. And so each person has, their own circumstances in life, and mine have changed since then. I don't think I'm in that same place anymore, but at that point, I needed that. And so all along the way, it's really just driven me closer to the Lord, to seek him for answers and, comfort for the things I go through. And he's so faithful to provide things like that along the way, and help us realize that it's okay. We just keep going.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, because so often we don't realize that God is protecting us. And when you invite him into dating, into your situation, even if you're in a relationship and you don't know if he's the one, when you invite God into your situation, he will protect you. And sometimes we may feel rejected, or someone breaks up with us, or maybe this like term ghosting is all out now, where maybe you went on 3 dates with some guy and he ghosts you and never talks to you again. Like, we need to start looking at that as trusting that he's protecting us. When we are seeking him, those situations are his protection, because he cherishes us. And so that vision is so beautiful. And I think, is this the yes, if you're watching on YouTube, Alyssa brought this beautiful little, what is it called?
I don't know.
Little statue. I think it's a little statue.
Yeah.
And it's describe it.
Yeah, so I was traveling, studying abroad, and of course, the Lord had given me this vision like 10 years ago, and I forget now when I was in Europe, but I saw this in the store, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly like what I saw in my vision, and I just bought it as a reminder for myself, so that, it kind of encompasses like what the Lord had spoken to me, so it's a good visual reminder. So.
Yes, and so you had this beautiful vision from God, and you clearly have that communication with the Lord. And for people listening that don't feel like that they feel like they don't know how to hear from God, or they feel like they can't hear from God, what's your advice for someone in that situation that wants to go deeper and wants to learn how to communicate and hear from God?
Yes, such a good question. I think many of us are trying to figure out how to do that or do it better.
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
so any relationship takes time to cultivate, and it's the same with God. If we don't set aside time to read his word, listen to worship music, surround ourselves with like-minded people or the people we want to be like, then we're not going to hear his voice as clearly. And the more time you spend with someone, the easier it is to kind of anticipate what they're going to say. Or, like when you're with a group of friends or girls or your best friend, like you already know what they're going to say before they do. And so it's the same way with God. And so, really, like for me, studying the word has always been most important because I don't have to guess what he says. He's already said it. And so, reading through that and applying it in my life today is important. And then also, so many times we talk about like praying to God or listening, but it doesn't include the part of us not talking. Like we expect like praying is, oh, we're listening too, but it's different. We can pray and talk to God, but praying is also letting God talk to us. And so if we don't give that space and time to just be still, be silent, that's actually like when that vision came to me as I was praying, but I was also just not talking. And then that came into my head. And so if we just carve out, I know it's hard, but carve out some time. There's no shortcuts with growth. And if we are intentional, God it will definitely speak and guide us.
And if you're intimidated about like reading the Bible, first of all, direct message me and I'll help you and I'll tell you where to start and get you the right Bible that is easier to read. But it is once you start reading it, you just realize it's so real life. It's so human. Like Christianity, it is so human and it's a personal relationship with God and you really understand the character of God when you start reading the word yourself. Yes, and then you said, being still, like having the courage to just be still, or even like go on a walk and try to hear what God is saying or doing, and even just the feeling, how you're feeling, how your body's feeling, is how God speaks to us too. Is
Yes.
what's bringing peace.
Yes, that is a huge indicator. And
Yep.
I think so many times we can over spiritualize it. Like God
Yes.
speaks to us, but as believers, and when you put your faith
Mhm.
in him, he gives us the Holy Spirit. It lives inside of us and it's like, wow, I'm following my gut, but it's God.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's not this big like audible voice. But yeah, feelings, a still small voice, the word of God. And the reason I think it's important that we're talking about this is because in my single season, and I know yours as well, it it transforms things when you have someone there with you, the Holy Spirit with you all the time to communicate. You're not alone. You have Jesus there every second with you. And I know that you were engaged before, so I want to like transition into this. So tell us a little bit about that and how that went, because I know you're not engaged anymore. So yes, we want to hear this story.
Yeah. It was probably one of the hardest things I ever went through in my life. Like I said, I was a late bloomer. So after some dates here or there, my first boyfriend, great Christian guy. And I think like actually just tagging off of like hearing the voice of God, that's why it's so important too, is because I always tried to invite God into that. And yet I discounted some things that I didn't have peace on early on and still went forward. And so when I talk about following God or following peace, it's coming from personal experience. I think sometimes when you're with a great guy, it's harder to discern if he's right or not because you're looking for like glaring things or is he cheating on you or doing all those things. That was not my case. The guy I was with is an amazing guy still, and I have respect for him. However, there were some differences in our personalities and things that doesn't make him a bad person or me. It just made us different. And I wasn't comfortable with those differences. And so I tried to push forward because it was like, well, he is so great. We believe the same things. How could this not be God? Like, why is this wrong? But if I'm being honest, I had unrest and I wasn't at peace. Like there's something off. And you can't force something.
Right.
And I tried. And so to the point where I was engaged. And then as the time went on to get closer to the wedding, that peace, that lack of peace grew so strong. And I feel like God actually came after me harder. Like that unrest grew more in my spirit where I could no longer ignore it and I couldn't force it. I couldn't push forward. It was like, no, this is not right. And as much as I didn't want to hurt him, or I struggled a lot with guilt and shame to break that off. And honestly, my own desire. I was 29 and, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be
He thought it's
30.
what you're
Like,
supposed to be
time's
doing.
ticking.
Yeah,
Yes, I
the
want to be
clock's
married.
ticking.
But I had to also just surrender all of that and say, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I just know right now this is not right.
Wow.
And I asked God and praying and crying, like, God, what should I do? What do I need to do? And I just heard his voice so sweetly respond, Alyssa, you know what to do.
Wow.
And I was like, I
Yep,
don't want
that's
the
real.
answer. I don't like the answer,
That's
though.
real. Yeah.
So, yeah, I will just say, too, one more thing on that is I felt like I knew it was wrong in my spirit, like I said, and I kept kind of going forward. And it actually hindered my relationship with God because I knew that I needed to face it and I didn't
Yeah.
want to. And so after I did the hard thing and made that choice, I had so much peace in my life, so
Wow.
much joy, and I felt like close to God again. I felt like restored in my own relationship with him.
Yeah.
Because I was obedient, even though it was very difficult, but
Yes.
he's faithful.
Wow. And that takes a lot of courage for you to, and I know how you feel, to make a decision to follow what God is saying is right for you and follow the peace rather than following maybe like what you want, or even if it was a good relationship, just because he's a good guy doesn't mean he's the right guy for you.
Yes.
And for anyone listening, follow your peace. Follow that call of peace. So you could be in a relationship, or maybe you're in a dating situation where you don't know to move forward with that person or to end things with that person. What direction is bringing you peace? That's such a clear way that God speaks to us, and you can trust that. And it takes courage to act on that, but we can do all things through Christ.
Yes, it is tough. Yeah, if you ever find yourself, defending who you're with or talking yourself into it or making excuses, that's probably a sign.
Tell us a little bit about that too, because you saw signs.
Yeah, I actually broke up with him once before we were engaged. And that just kind of shows like, oh, I felt like something was off because I actually, did that. And it was hard. However, I'm a very thorough person. I don't want any regrets. And I'm like, no, I'm going to try again and see. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm taking it too seriously. Maybe I'm too picky, all of that. But, there are some things, yeah, I wish I would have just followed through with, like when I knew something was off instead of trying to make it work.
Yeah.
So.
And I have heard this before too, that relationships it doesn't have to be this big, ugly breakup, this petty thing.
No.
Like, we're adults and all of us are children of God as well, whether you're a believer or you're not. And I think that it's also awesome that you say, yeah, he's a great guy and I wish him the best.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't have to be this ugly breakup. And God is going to bless both of you for being obedient and going the way that he's calling you to go. Because ultimately, if you don't feel good about it, it's not right for him either.
Exactly. And I cared about him enough to know if you don't want to be with me if I'm having these concerns. Because
imagine if you would have, got married to the wrong person, that it impacts both of your entire lives. So that's commendable for sure. And so tell us a little bit about that healing journey though, and how that was, because again, you could be the one breaking up with someone, but it can still be just as heartbreaking that it didn't work out. So tell us about that and how you overcame that.
Yeah, I think because I was the one that broke it off, a lot of my healing involved overcoming the guilt and the shame of like oh, I shouldn't have, done this, or how did I get this far? Where did I miss God? That was also really hard, is like wondering where I went wrong and internalizing some of
Yeah.
those things. Um, so that first year was really a year of healing for me, where everyone handles it differently. For me, I wanted to face it head on. I wanted to create
Mhm.
new memories. I wanted to go to some of the same places, have some of the same experiences around town. But I did that with my family or friends or people I was close to, and kind of redeeming the memories and redeeming the places.
So, okay, I've never done this before. So, give us an example of that cuz that's so interesting to me.
um, okay, so where I live is a cute area, and I remember we used to take like a lot of walks around there.
Okay.
And so my dad actually came over one weekend to spend some time with me, and we were going to go downtown to eat in this area. And I was so glad he was with me because I hadn't been down to that area since I was with my, ex-fiance. So
Mhm.
it was just nice to like kind of face it. I cried, and I just, let yourself feel the emotion if you need to. Like, don't be
Yeah.
afraid to stuff it down or move
Right.
forward too quickly. I think there's a balance between not getting stuck in the past, but also not just pushing under the rug and just moving forward like everything's fine. You have to be
Right.
honest with yourself. Like, no, this hurts. Even
Right.
though it was the right choice, even though I didn't have regrets over that, it was still hard. It's still a loss. It's still grief. And so
Right.
going through that, there was another place where I had missed an opportunity to go do something with my mom, and around that time when we were together, and then like the next year came around and like, mom, we are
Let's
going. Like,
go.
we're gonna go.
Yes.
And so little things like that, places or experiences that,
I love that.
you face it and then you move on, and then the
Yeah.
next time you don't think about it. I go, okay.
Yeah, recreating the experience. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. And yes, we are aligned in the fact that balance is so important. Like it's okay and I highly encourage it to have your moments where you just want to cry it out. Like
Yes.
let it out. Let it out. And that could last a long time and I'm one of those people where I could be probably every other day I have a moment where I'm like, I just need to cry, like, and just let it out. And I just feel so much better after it.
Mm-hmm.
But so tell us a little bit about that balance because
Yeah.
it's like we want to have this strong faith and we want to move forward in faith
Mm-hmm.
and we want to heal, but also we need to have a balance of we want to make sure we're not trying to numb the
Yes.
issue and we want to make sure we're healing because we want to
Yes.
grow. So, anyway, tell us what advice you have for listeners to have that healthy balance.
Yes, I'm huge on balance. It's like my word because I think it's so crucial. So,
Yes.
uh, it really, you can't plan it. To be balanced, you kind of have to know what you need in that moment. So, you can't just say, like, well, I'm going to, at least for me, I can't make a plan like, well, this is how I'm going to act or this is how I'm going to live. Like, no, like you take it a week at a time, a day at a time, and know what you need in that hour. And so, yeah, there's times where I'm just having a rough night and I just cry in my
Mhm.
bed or whatever, and then I get it off and I feel so much better. And
Yeah.
then I'll go weeks and I'll be totally fine. So it is important to let yourself feel that, or else it does like bottle up and then you
Right.
explode. Or, there are times where, oh, I feel a little down or I wish I was with someone or whatever. Well, okay, I'm not going to stay home tonight. I'm going to text my friend and we're going to go out to dinner, and you
Yeah.
need to get out and just put your big girl panties on and deal with
Right.
it. So
Right.
there's, there's moments, and I think it's just being sensitive and listening to yourself and like asking God, like, what do I need in this moment? Like, do I need to be by myself? And, a lot of times I find that I can be off, or I'm like hyper emotional or sensitive. And I realize
Mhm.
it's because I'm not trusting God and I'm not spending as much time with Him, and everything is just exaggerated.
Right.
But when I come back, just play some worship music, lay on the floor, just kind of bask and just rest, I feel so much better.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it's normal to have time where you're sad after a relationship ends or
mhm,
after a dating situation doesn't work out or just if you it's normal human emotions to be upset or to be maybe feel lonely sometimes, and it's okay. Like, we want to be able to feel our emotions and not numb them, and learn from them, and then really use those situations to really seek the Lord and know that the Lord is with you.
Yes. And reach out to people too, like friends to pray, or family if you have a good family that you are close with. And like, you're not meant to do life alone. Right. And it's really key to have those trusted people in your life. You don't have to go out telling the whole world all your issues, but one or two people that you really trust, like, hey, I'm having a rough day. Can you just pray for me? You don't even have to tell them what. And there's people in your life that you don't have to go into detail with, or you can. But just having that support system. I know for me, I talk on the phone once a week with my college roommate, and we've had some similar experiences. And so that has been such a lifesaver for the both of us, is just a talk every week, and we pray with each other and for each other.
That's awesome.
So
I love that. So, and to kind of switch the subject now, so you have kind of a different dating experience now. So you went from this like late bloomer to God was protecting you from men and kind of holding back the reins, and now it seems like it's like raining men over here.
I know, it's like the floodgates open.
I
like,
love it. I love when
out?
It's raining men. I love to get the tea. So tell us about it. How's that going?
So, but the key is like raining good men.
Right, we want good men of God to be raining down.
So my roommate I just mentioned from college, we prayed together about this, and we're really seeking the Lord on it. And then like a year ago, and then like the next month, like a couple of guys from mutual friends, reached out to me, and that like started this entire last year of just all these guys that I've never, like I said, true story, like never was asked out, hardly ever. And then in the last year, I've probably been asked out more than my entire life. And so
God is opening up the floodgates.
I'm like,
it's time.
Is there like wife on my head or something? I don't know. But like suddenly people are seeing it. So yeah, I definitely am like, it's been a different experience. It's grown my confidence. I will say that after the first year of healing, like I thought I was ready and like, okay, that was the right choice. Like I'm ready to get out there. And then like now if I'm talking to people or I share that I was engaged, I'm like, oh my gosh, that time seems like it was not that long ago. Like I'm glad there's been some time to just kind of show that I'm really okay and you're not a rebound.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, it's been a great learning and growing experience. And the Lord just kind of honing in more of what I'm looking for, what brings me peace. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been exhausting. And I'm like, all right, God, these are awesome guys. But, like.
So do you have kind of a ritual you go through, like before a date? Do you pray? Do you ask God? Like, what's your, do you have anything like that? What do you do?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like super legalistic or anything, but I do I definitely pray before, and okay, God, like help me to see everything, bring everything to light, like
and
the
he
maker.
Will.
Yeah, he will.
When you ask, he will.
People say that's a dangerous prayer, but I'm like, I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to waste theirs. So if there's big things we need to talk about right away, then let's just get them out there.
Right.
So that's been definitely something that's crucial for me, is just asking for it. And then the other step of that is, okay, when he does show you, or when you're talking and things come up or you find out certain things, what are you going to do with that? So you have a choice.
Yeah, I love that. Before we end, I like to end with affirmations. If you haven't listened to the show, I really believe in the power of affirmations and aligning with what we're saying with what God says about us. So if you could place your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I am not alone. I am loved and cherished by the Father, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. In Jesus' name. And make sure before you leave to subscribe to the podcast platforms you listen to. Subscribe on YouTube, comment, rate, 5-star rating, follow. Share what you loved about the episode. Share what you learned. Give us your feedback. And I hope to see you soon. Bye, guys.